Let me set the scene for you. It's a few days before Christmas. Two German battle cruisers had got themselves about a mile offshore, and at 8 o'clock they started the bombardment. 500 shells, we reckon, fell, and the lighthouse was the first, or one of the first buildings to be hit. We then had the Royal Hotel, that cream building there, and of course the impressive Grand Hotel as well. There's also a remarkable escape about a school, and I'll tell you more about that a little later on tonight. There's also a conspiracy theory as well. Let me give you the story of what happened a few days before Christmas 100 years ago. Soldiers in York march over Lendal Bridge, preparing to go to the front line. In December 1914, Britain had been at war for 4 months. Many thought it would be over by Christmas. But on the night of the 16th, the might of the German Navy headed for the Yorkshire coast. Their targets included Scarborough, unprepared and undefended. You know, if anything sums up what it might have been like just a few days before Christmas in 1914, this surely is it. Now, the German Navy had sent 3 battle cruisers up the coast to Hartlepool. They sent 2 off the coast here at Scarborough. Now, the last time that Scarborough had been invaded was by the Vikings 1,000 years ago, and the bombardment started just about bang on 8 o'clock in the morning. "500 shells, some weighing as much as a ton, rained down on the town. 18 people died, scores were injured. Landmark buildings, including the Grand Hotel and the Scarborough Lighthouse, were damaged. The brutal reality of the conflict had been brought to British soil, and the war was changed forever. The indiscriminate nature of the bombing spared nobody, not even school children. Gladstone Road School took a direct hit. The clock stopped at 8:25 on December the 16th, so we're presuming that was the moment the shell came through the hall and caused absolute chaos. Only 2 children in the entire school were here at that point, Charlotte and Kathy, and thank heavens for a quick-thinking caretaker called Mr. Crawford. There was a dash for cover. Kathy's great-granddaughter, Lucy Watson, also a former pupil at the school, takes up the story.
When they got here, they were the only pupils in the school, and there was just the caretaker here. So they were in the top hall when the bomb went off, and the caretaker brought them down into this basement to keep them safe. It must have been terrifying for her, because she was only young, but for us it's kind of like this amazing part of our family history, so it's kind of interesting for us.
Both children survived, and for Lucy this was her first ever visit to the cellar. The dramatic details of this incident could have been lost forever.
Well, our evidence comes from the headmistress and her account in the school logbook for the date 16th of December. And when she looked at the hall, first of all she found that a shell had gone through the glass roof. She found that classroom number 4 had been damaged, and she found that the clock had stopped at 8:25. And she made a comment in the school logbook to say that had it have been a little later, the whole school had been assembled underneath that glass ceiling for prayers.
The bombardment of Scarborough had lasted half an hour, but the Kaiser's fleet still hadn't finished. Moving north, Whitby then came under fire. 7 people were killed. Attacks on undefended seaside resorts shocked the country, but the debate still continues about how much prior knowledge the British government had. There is, of course, a conspiracy theory. The Royal Navy were waiting for the Germans 70 miles off the coast at Dogger Bank. They were supposed to ambush them after they'd finished here at Scarborough and Hartlepool. That, of course, raises the question, did they know there would be an attack on Scarborough, and could they have prevented the loss of 18 lives? Well, with me to answer one or two of those questions, Dr. Robb Robinson from Hull University, historian. I walked about 15 yards here when I arrived here this morning. People said the attack shouldn't have happened. The government knew about it. Did they?
Well, in part they knew, because they had intelligence that an attack was going to take place. But to be fair, they didn't know where, they didn't know exactly when. They just had a rough idea that something was going to take place. But they were engaged in a deadly game of cat and mouse with the German fleets. And really, part of both sides were trying to lure others into a position where they could catch them.
And what about Scarborough as a choice of this attack? Why? Was it just a random choice?
Well, it's easy for us to say that now, knowing that it was attacked, because it was an unusual place to choose because it was unarmed. But in actual fact, if you were coming across the North Sea from Germany, this was an ideal place to hit. Most of the battle fleet was up at Scapa Flow. The rest of the forces were down at Felixstowe and Harwich.
But some people tell me there was a signal station here that could have been a target for the German Navy. Is that reality?
Well, the Germans did try to clothe or justify the attack on the grounds that there were military installations or intelligence installations here. But it really was quite a remarkable thing. It was a watershed in the Great War and in earlier wars.
But why didn't the Royal Navy then manage to capture the German battle cruisers as they left? Because wasn't that the plan of this all along?
But good, things happen in war, is it? Stuff happens, they say, and this was a bit like that. The weather was bad, they lost contact with them, they got away. And it was quite remarkable, but it did lead to a readjustment of where the fleets and the vessels were kept afterwards.
Just give me some kind of perspective, Rob, of what this attack actually meant for the war effort in this country.
It was an enormously watershed event. You didn't expect this sort of thing to happen. An unarmed town being attacked. This had never happened before. Civilians had been caught up in wars, but not with military installations. And this really gave the moral high ground to Britain, and it meant as a result that many people thought the British cause was justified and right, as many people already did. And of course, many families, if they look back in their history and look at when people joined up, they'll notice a lot of people joined up after this event because it so inflamed the public.
Well, we've got the benefit of hindsight, of course, and we have particularly now with a weather forecast. Just try and tell us the kind of conditions that were here on December the 16th, 1914, Paul.
Well, the weather conditions are absolutely crucial, very different to the ones we've got here tonight. There was a lot of mist, there was what we call stratus over the North Sea, and what that helped to camouflage the warboats. And the first thing that the residents of Scarborough knew at 8 o'clock in the morning were hearing the shells exploding across the town, and some reported that there was a thunderstorm. They thought there was a thunderstorm, very disconcerting stuff. And as we've just heard, the weather conditions deteriorated further, and that helped the German warships get away. So, you know, really interesting from a weather point of view.
So first on this programme, an accurate forecast from Paul.